Welcome back. It is an all-out collision in Chicago this week as wrestling fans converge on the city.
Chicago is Jericho!
It's the week-long event in Chicago that unites AEW fans from around the world.
People here in Chicago love it. Unbelievable!
Wow. All right. All Elite Wrestling is in town for 3 events, including Saturday's Collision and Sunday's pay-per-view All Out, both happening at the United Center. Joining us now, a man who wears many, many hats, Tony Khan, owner, CEO, GM, and head of creative for AEW. Tony, good morning to you. How the heck do you do it all?
It's pretty busy, and today is one of the busiest days of the year, but it's great to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Tony, thank you so much for joining us. All In at Wembley Stadium last Sunday broke the attendance record for any paid pro wrestling event there ever. So what does that say about what AEW is doing right now and just the state of pro wrestling?
It's pretty amazing. Pro wrestling has been around for many years, over 100 years. And last weekend in London, AEW set the all-time record for tickets sold for any wrestling event worldwide ever.
Wow.
Very exciting. And we're back here where it all began 5 years ago for AEW. We're back at the United Center. It's a great venue. And AEW actually started in the suburbs of Chicago, and we're bringing it into the city. United Center, one of the greatest venues in all of sports. And AEW, we're just on fire right now. And we're really excited to bring the best pro wrestling in the world to Chicago this Saturday live on TNT. And then Sunday, we have a huge pay-per-view show, both at the United Center. It's really exciting.
I was watching that video while you were telling us about that. And some guy, I had like a cone and he was jamming it into somebody's head. I don't know what was going on there. Pretty intense. What makes AEW different from other wrestling organizations? I mean, obviously you guys have a huge fan base, but what makes you different?
Well, we've got the best pro wrestlers in the world. We've got the best roster, and we have the best interviews, the best wrestling, and the best fans. And I think it's really, really exciting what's happening in wrestling right now. It's a hot time for the wrestling business. And AEW, since we launched, we've grown, and really things culminated last week. It was our biggest weekend we've ever had and the biggest weekend ever in wrestling for ticket sales. It was a huge pay-per-view, and now we're following it up here. We come back to Chicago every Labor Day, and we've got some huge matches this weekend. I'm really excited about Jon Moxley versus Orange Cassidy for the International Championship, and we got so much great action coming Saturday and Sunday at the United Center. And I think one of the things that really sets AEW apart, the interviews are not tightly scripted. So when our wrestlers go out and say what they feel, it feels like the kind of wrestling interviews I grew up on, where you hear these wrestlers and they're just larger than life.
Wow. You had mentioned a little bit about the history and how AEW was founded here in Chicago. What makes Chicago so special as a place to continue coming back to and sort of celebrate, I guess, the roots of the organization?
Well, for AEW, at least I feel that Chicago has some of the best wrestling fans in the entire world. There's a bunch of great venues for wrestling around Chicago. And there hadn't been any shows at the United Center in a long time. I think it had been about 20 years or more since anybody had run an event at the United Center when we brought wrestling there a few years ago. We've been going back consistently. I just think Chicago has the most loyal, rabid fans. We run several shows a year here, but this is our biggest show of the year, our biggest weekend of the year. We always come back Labor Day weekend. It's a great tradition we built, and I'm really excited to keep it going this weekend with AEW at the United Center.
I think rabid is an appropriate term to use for Chicago sports fans in general, including pro wrestling fans. Saturday's Collision is free to watch. Sunday's All Out is on pay-per-view. So tell Chicagoans why they cannot miss either of these big events.
Well, it's got to be one of the biggest weekends in all of pro wrestling coming up this weekend and Labor Day weekend in Chicago. So you'll be able to watch Saturday's show on TNT, but there's nothing like live wrestling in person. Get a great chance to see Collision at the United Center. The first episode we ever did of Collision was at the United Center, and now we're back where it began for that great show. And All Out is one of our flagship original pay-per-views, and it's great to bring it into the United Center. We've done the event in the suburbs around Hoffman Estates at the Now Arena previously, and we're bringing it now to the best and the biggest venue, the United Center. It's going to be awesome. And definitely you're going to see the best in pro wrestling, some of the biggest stars, some of the best matches, Orange Cassidy, Jon Moxley, Darby Allin, FTR, so many of the great stars competing in huge matches this weekend. I'm really looking forward to it. And the first tag team championship defense of MJF and Adam Cole, who are one of the hottest acts in pro wrestling right now.
So much to look forward to. We did speak to Darby Allin about an hour ago here on the stream. He mentioned that he has just loved being a part of AEW because he can be himself. Like, his character is not really a character, he's just being himself. And you sort of spoke to the unscripted nature of these events. How important is that to you, to allow these wrestlers to just step into the ring and be their authentic selves? Like, do you think that's why you guys have been so successful?
Absolutely. I think that's a huge part of AEW's success. And it's a great point that Darby made. We really want the wrestlers to be themselves. I don't want to give somebody some ridiculous soliloquy or speech to read when they go out there. I want the wrestlers to speak from the heart. And really, our wrestlers take the biggest chances. You'll see some of the craziest high-flying, some of the biggest stunts, some of the wildest matches in AEW, but they also speak from the heart. So when Darby says that, I think he really means it. He's one of the most popular, authentic people you're going to see in the wrestling business. And I think when he says something like that, you know it's true.
Absolutely. And fans can see through BS if it's BS. One last question for you. Today is also a big day, of course, for the soccer world. You're the owner of Fulham FC's transfer deadline day. Do you have any plans that you might want to share with us? Give us a little exclusive.
It is a very busy day at Fulham. My phone has been going off. I've been up all night, and I'll be up for a lot longer. It's a really busy time for us, but we're having a really great time at Fulham. Last season was one of the best seasons Fulham's ever had in the Premier League, and hopefully it's going to be another great season for Fulham in the Premier League. As soon as this interview is over, I'll be jumping right back on the phone.
Fair. Well, we will let you get to that really quick, though. Any productivity tips to keep going on long days like that?
Just really, if you enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. And, I'm blessed in that sense because I love sports, and I'm lucky to work in sports like wrestling and football.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Right now, tickets are still available for both Saturday's Collision event and Sunday's all-out pay-per-view. AEW CEO, owner, GM, and head of creative Tony Khan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.